Hello, everyone. Welcome back, Talkie World, to me. And let's just understand that Eklund's right all the time. But let's first start with Russ. We'll talk about that in a little bit, and we'll talk about we'll get to that. Kevin Allen's going to be joining us shortly.
Yep.
He'll also definitely agree that I am right all the time. So, but you go ahead, Russ.
Okay. I'm going to make the parameters of this. We're going to talk about something, and I'm going to make the parameters clear so Mike can follow them, because Mike always veers off. If I say pick 2 things, he picks 10. You get to pick 3, Mike. This is it.
3. Okay.
3. I just want to make that clear. We're going to pick the 3 best rock guitarists that we have seen live. So my first one will always be Steve Howe. He uses like 20 guitars a show.
Right.
He plays great solos.
Rock guitarist.
He almost never misses a note. That's one. I will say for the second one, it's interesting because you'd always hear about the legend of this guy. And then a couple of years ago, they had this, like, I forget what it was called. I covered it. It was like all the great metal guitarists got together. Zakk Wylde ran it. I don't remember what the name of the show was.
Right.
And Yngwie Malmsteen happened to be there.
Yeah.
And you know what? This guy really is.
Oh, he's great.
He is unbelievable. Like, and I just had never been able to appreciate. To me, it's like what you hear on a record and what you hear live is different. And that's because on a record, you don't know how many takes you're hearing. Yes, it sounds great, but when it's live, it's live. You don't get to go back and redo it. And so I always feel
especially with guitars, because guitars, what you're getting with a guitar live is you're getting the amp sound that the guitarist wants, versus the amp sound that was used to fit into the track. Like when you're trying to mix a guitar into a track, you have to of course you record it with the amp sound the guitarist wants and all that stuff, but then all the tweaking of the highs and lows and stuff like that to get it to fit, and
that makes sense. And my third one will be Eddie Van Halen. I did get to see him once, and while I'm not a fan of the fact that he could never play the same note twice,
right,
in the format of a show, what he could do with a guitar was pretty amazing. So those are my 3.
Okay, I did see Van Halen live, so I would put him in that category, but not in my top 3. Clapton is 1.
Okay.
I saw him later in his career, but he was still fantastic.
Yeah, I saw him at Live Aid when he sort of got clean, and he was really good at that.
Yeah, I definitely would say Steve Howe for the reasons that you mentioned. And I mean, there's so many that would finish.
There's a ton.
I'll go with Steve Hackett.
Okay.
Because he's a personal favorite, and Genesis is my favorite band, and he's not like Mr. all over the place. He's just, he hits everything. He sounds great all the time.
Maybe we'll have the full list on like Rockology with.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
Broaden it.
Yeah, we'll have to do categories. Categories.
We'll broaden it, but all right. So
go ahead. I want to do a Rockology show, guys.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. Whenever you're free.
All right. A little selfless promotion here, but the guitarist from Grey Glances, who's also the guitarist from a band called Ekelin. And a lot of times you could sit there, and I played with lots of guitarists in my time. Ekelin signed to Sony Records, and now he does his own solo album as well. And I played, and I've worked with some really great guitarists over my day, but Brett Cull, his name is the guitarist from Grey Glances and Ekelin, and he is just rigging phenomenal. And we would have other guitar players from whenever we would go anywhere, because Ekelin's a prog rock band. So when he was with them, he definitely showed off more stuff than he got to show off with us. But we had elements of that prog rock in us. But yeah, he's just. We would go places, and other guitarists from bands would come like hours and hours to see him play. And honestly, it's just that's how good he was. Nicest
there's
guy.
Always guys that you don't expect.
You would never. Honestly, in another planet, Ekelin comes out at the time that and those bands are coming out. They're probably just as big as them, and they have like some. You guys would probably you should probably check out Ekelin at some point.
Okay. And first, I have to figure out how to spell it.
Yeah, ECHOLYN. Okay. Ekelin. And really, really something else. And they've got some great stuff. And Brett Cull is the guy, and he is that good. And I'm not just saying. I toured with the guy for hundreds of.
All right, number 2. Let's go.
Number 2, Steve Hackett. I'm going to go with Mike on that one. Better than Steve Howe.
I don't know. I've seen them together.
They're different. They're different.
They are different.
It's hard to compare them, but in my opinion,
they're different styles.
I I love Steve Howe. I do.
Well, if you saw GTR back in the day, you would have been on the Hackett side of the stage instead of the House side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're different. I mean, comparing them for me, better is Steve Hackett.
Okay.
And then but my top guy is Tom Morello from Rage Against.
Oh, okay. All right.
He's the best, like in my opinion. I'm not just the best because of what he does with Rage Against the Machine, but because of every collaboration I've heard the guy with. It's just like,
did I see him? I covered Chicken Foot once. Was he with them?
He may have been. I don't know.
I got to look that up. I think he may have.
I've seen him with a lot of different people, and just to see how he can fit into all different kinds of genres and different kinds of situations.
I think his stuff with Audio Slave is so phenomenal. I mean,
yeah,
I like Rage.
No, you know who it was? It was Satriani with Chicken Foot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I like Rage, but they're really a little too political for me.
Yeah,
but
same here.
Audio Slave was straight ahead rock and roll with Cornell on lead vocals, and Morello is just incredible. So yeah,
he does. The thing I like about him is he really plays more like a lot of electric guitarists are very flowery with their style and stuff like that. The way they actually perform,
he plays a lot of feel.
There's a ton of feel.
Yeah.
He knows when not to play, which is a huge thing for guitarists.
Yes.
And that I give that to Brett too, our guy from just knowing when not to play is just enormous. And it's like, and he knows when not to play, but he also can fit in with everything. I've seen him with Springsteen. I've seen him with other people too. And he's crazy. It's crazy good. Anyway,
we can get Kevin's top 3 guitarists when he comes on.
Yeah. Kevin will be joining us in a little bit. But for now, let's start the show. We got stuff to talk about. All right, what's the date today? The 19th. I should know that. I'm getting my COVID shot. All right.
Oh, we're getting
Hockey World.
That's amazing.
What was that? Yeah, you and I are getting ours the same day. It's pretty crazy. Oh, here's Kevin right now.
So this could be the last show that we ever do. If Eck and I both pass from getting our shot today, at least we have one more show. Eck.
Well, wait a second. This is the scary thing. I took my mom to get her shot, and I had the shot the same place. We have the same lot of the same drug. So if it's a bad lot, we're both dead.
Yeah. Well, my whole neighborhood will be.
They shouldn't. The show shouldn't have allowed you and Russ to both have your shots.
That's true. I was thinking that.
Same day. I know. This is my second. I'm so excited. The rest is second too. So yes, after today.
My first was yesterday. So.
Yes, and I am celebrating by going to Florida 2 weeks from now, with the family because we'll all have our shots at that point. So I'm excited. We haven't, really excited for that one. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, March 19th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday. Fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. Nice, clean intro, guys. I like it. And here we go. So we got to start off with me being right because, Kevin, you weren't here yesterday. But
you said you were going to ease into it. Yeah, you really did a good job of that.
I'm just going to start with it because I swore up and down. I said I've been around hockey long enough. And I tweeted to you guys last night that it's like I've been around hockey too long now because I feel like I can predict every friggin' thing that's going to happen.
Yeah, but Ack, okay.
I took long enough to know that the Flyers were going to win last night. There was just
but Ack, you're the curse because you tweeted you texted us. They were up 3-0 and then they blew the lead. It's like
am I the curse or was I just telling you that they're up 3-0? That's a dangerous lead. They're in trouble, and I said that they were in trouble at 3-0. I said it
after 2013 and your famous text.
I know.
I plead with you. If there's a Game 7 involving the Maple Leafs, do not text me until the end of the game.
Yes, I know, and I haven't since. I have not.
They were going to score the 4th goal with a couple minutes to go, and that the Islanders wouldn't with the extra man off. You knew all of that. You knew they were going to blow a 3-0 lead with.
Knew they were going to win, Russ. I didn't know how they were going to win. I just knew that in the NHL, when a team gets blown out like that, and they play the next night, they don't lose again. They don't. They just don't. They don't. It's just the way that the emotions of it. I mean, the Islanders. The last team the Islanders wanted to play last night were the Flyers, honestly, because the Flyers coming off that. I mean, and granted, the Flyers are not better than the Islanders, and the Islanders would beat them in a playoff series. But I'm just saying that when you look at the momentum and the way things ebb and flow, there's no two ways about it.
It still wasn't a good game for them. Blowing that 3-0 lead was terrible.
No, it was terrible, and we've seen it before. The Islanders love to come back on the Flyers. They've done it many times.
Well, the Flyers have their number this year for whatever reason so far.
But Kevin, we want to get your thoughts on this. The Flyers, in my mind, are a flawed team. They have a lot of good parts, but the problem is, and we talked about it with Anthony and Russ yesterday, is the fact that they still to this point have not filled the hole vacated by Matt Niskanen. Their defense is sort of off kilter because of that. But the question we have is, if they add that defenseman, are they even good enough to get out of the division? And my thought is, I don't know. And I don't know if Chuck Fletcher is going to waste the assets to go out and get a defenseman when they might not get out of the division.
Yeah, because, the division is so tight that I think luck will be required in addition to ability. I mean, it's going to be one of those playoffs in this division where if you replay it a day later, it would be a completely different outcome. Just because everybody is so tight. And, I like the way you phrase that the Flyers are a flawed team. And I think they're flawed because their goaltender, who is very, very talented, still isn't all yet that he can be.
Right.
So whenever you have that situation, you're never quite sure what's going to happen. Not that he's not going to be great, because he is going to be great, and he is great on various occasions, but there's some inconsistency obviously to his game that we've seen this season.
I mean,
his last 6 games he hasn't gotten over a 900 save percentage. He hasn't even been really that close to it, like 880, 884. It's like,
yeah. I mean, but hey, Bob turned it around.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
he has. And Columbus is now only a point out of the playoff spot, which is pretty crazy. And then they're not playing all that well either to be there, but they're doing it. They're around 500 in their last 10 games, I think.
I have been buried today in work, and I didn't see what happened between Minnesota and Colorado last night.
I'll check on that. I didn't see it either.
I didn't see it either.
But let me check. But continue on, and I'll let you know.
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I did from my other a part-time job working for a gambling site. I did an analysis, and I could not believe how evenly matched Minnesota and Colorado are now.
Colorado won 5-1.
5-1. Wow.
Yeah, right. These signs are just $6.
What's happening?
Sorry.
I don't know.
Okay.
That's okay.
I think it's Mike's dance mix.
Going into that game, there was 1 point separating the two teams. Their records, basically, the difference were, an overtime loss versus a regulation loss. They had scored exactly the same number of goals. They had given up exactly the same number of goals. They had played 4 times previously this season. Each team had won twice. They were both 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. That's how close those two teams have been. Now, if you would have said that at the start of the season, anybody who said that, someone would have suggested they were nuts. Colorado was picked as one of the favorites to win it all, and Minnesota was where they generally are, which is, we think they're better, but we don't know quite how good.
And we don't know what division they're in.
Based on what you had said about Carter Hart, Kakinen, we don't know what he's going to be like down the stretch, so that could change things. We don't know what goalie Colorado will have down the stretch. That'll change things. Well,
Cam Talbot got a workout last night because Colorado had 55 shots on goal to 20 for the Wild. So, that's a pretty good.
And in fairness, did Makar play last night? I don't know the answer to that.
Makar did not play.
Okay, but he's close.
Oh, he did play. I'm sorry, he did play.
Oh, he did play. Yeah, see, because he was close to coming back.
He's a huge difference maker too.
Yeah, now that makes a huge difference.
And Devin Taves is back. The only one who's not back right now for them on defense is Eric Johnson. But that you've got Makar, Taves, Byram, Graves, who's pretty good. I don't know much about Jacob McDonald and Sam Girard. Their defense is fantastic.
No, it's really good. It's
No, ultimately you would expect, Colorado to be the team that we thought they were. They've really been undermined by injuries all season.
Yeah, and that's why I think you can't really judge, because when I looked at the standings earlier in the week, they were 4th in that division, and I'm like, okay, they've really been hurt by. I mean, McKinnon was out for a while, and their defense was really hurt. But Kev, the one thing that we heard earlier in the week, I think it was Elliot Friedman that was reporting that they're interested in Devin Dubnyk, and I
don't know why.
Well, because Hunter Miska is their backup, and I think
and he's had some good outings, Kev. Dubnyk's had some good outings for San Jose this year.
Yeah, but the guy that I had heard they were interested in was Bernier, but he was injured last night.
He just got hurt too, yeah.
Yeah, injuries are big. Injuries are starting to see a lot more like flat-out injuries than we saw earlier in the year.
Yeah, I would take Bernier over Dubnyk, but...
Now, I don't want to spend a lot of time in this, Kev, but you did write a story about it for Hockey Buzz about the Sabres cluster that came to a head this week with the firing of Ralph Kruger. It seems, based on what Kevin Adams said in his media availability, that they're starting a search for a coach now. But to your point in the article, unless somebody has some influence over Terry and Kim Pegula and says, you've got to get a hockey person in here now.
Right.
I don't know if this is going to work. I mean, I've heard Jim Rutherford's name be mentioned. Supposedly they're interviewing Jason Karmanos as an AGM, and he has a relationship with Kevin Adams going back to Carolina. But unless they get somebody as an overseer, I don't know if anything's going to change.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two ways to look at that. I think that's what I would do for sure, would be to bring in, Jim Rutherford is 72 years old. So this could be the perfect fit for an ownership group that seems committed to the idea that they'd like to give Kevin Adams a chance. So, you say to Jim Rutherford, you don't want to be doing this when you're, 80. So why don't we just, say you're going to do it for 3 years, and then Adams takes over. And in the interim, you're in charge. And Adams learning from the best, just in terms of building. He's built 2 different teams. So he's got a background in doing that. That's what I would do. Now, I've heard they're not going to do that. Right. I've asked around to people around the league, and they say they've heard that the Pegulas just are not making any management changes, other than bringing in an assistant. So if that's true, then the mandate is they're going to have to use the Bill Zito model, which is you've got to completely, you got to fire the players. You say you can't fire the players. Well, in this case, you do. And I think you've got to, change 40 to 50% of the roster. And, basically you're going to change everyone other than the core players.
So when you talk about that, Kev, when you talk about changing 40 to 50% of the roster, now you're talking about another 3 years probably until they're good.
I saw Bill Zito do it in one off season.
Yeah, but he got a lot more to work with.
I had this discussion with the GM, and when I was done, he says, I can't argue with you. People say, well, it takes forever. Well, I saw Bill Zito change, and he took out, I shouldn't say he took out, because they left on their own, but he allowed Dadanoff and Hoffman to move aside. Yeah. But
he had better pieces behind than the Sabres do. He did have better pieces.
Well, no, what do you mean?
I don't know about that.
I mean, well, for one thing, better goaltending, even if wasn't great at the time.
But there are 2 instances of massive change this year that turned out to be successful. Not only Zito in Florida, but Bill Guerin in Minnesota. There was a lot of change.
Yeah, but he started to change it when he got in there right away.
Yeah. Right. But okay, but to your point, Kevin, this is the thing. They changed about 30% of their roster this year. I'm looking at their roster right now. Taylor Hall was a new guy. Eric Stahl was a new guy. Cody Eakin, Dylan Cousins was their first-round pick. Tobias Reeder, Riley Sheehan. I mean, that's just the forwards. I mean, they brought in a lot of different guys, and it didn't work because I think they brought in guys. Most of those guys are Ralph Kruger guys.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think that argument is, but I think what isn't being talked about here is I was totally wrong on this because I liked the Kruger hiring,
right?
But I had someone tell me yesterday who I really trust is that we've all been fooled by Ralph Kruger. Okay. Ralph Kruger is a tremendous communicator, and he's got a lot of coach speak, and he talks about synergy and everything. But in terms of the ability to coach X's and O's, he can't do it. The Oilers found that out, and now the Sabres found that out. So
yeah,
I mean, the chat room asks, who's the first player you get rid of? For me, it's Okposo. I have to get rid of guys who are basically can't do it anymore.
Right.
Well,
But
there's two reasons for that. Not you need to get rid of him because he's not doing anything, but also you need now a sign from the ownership that they're willing to do their part, and their part is they're going to eat the money, and buy him out. So,
but this organization, and I've mentioned this before, this organization is a buyout is anathema to them. They could have bought out Carter Hutton, and Carter Hutton was a bad goaltender for the first 2 years of his contract, and they didn't buy him out. It would not have been financially onerous to do it. Opozo, his money drops down to $4 million the last 2 years of his contract. So if you buy him out, the cap hit is spread over 4 years. It's like $1 million something.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, but for some reason they just do not believe. Just like they don't believe in senior advisors, they don't believe in buyouts.
Yeah. But I have to think, and what Kevin's saying, I think is right. I mean, first of all, you change 30%. It matters who those 30% are. It's not just it matters who you bring in. Obviously. Right. They didn't bring in the right people, but also the other thing with that you have to think about is that there is this is definitely a what you going to come to Jesus moment for the Pegulas. I mean, right, what's happening right now, this is a big deal. I think that you will see something like that. I think you will see a buyout because if you don't see a buyout right now from them, then you really then you're at the point now where
the Pegulas can't claim poorness any longer because they own the Bills. And if you just saw what the NFL contract with all their media, they're going to be getting, starting in 2 years, $300+ million a year on just television revenue per team. It's like $110 billion between ESPN, ABC, Fox, and all the other different ones. So, you can look at how that looks compared to the NHL getting $400 million from ESPN. It's a pittance.
Well, the thing that when you were talking about the changes they made in a lot, the one changes they didn't make, or a change they didn't make, was they didn't change their goaltending.
No,
right.
Now, although I just got into a lengthy conversation in the last few days about the fact that, as it turned out, who were the goalies that you should have gotten? The only one we know of is sitting in Calgary right now. Everyone else has kind of struggled.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't. The thing is, the Sabres didn't even pursue these.
Right.
Guys. They were locked into. And you know what? I'll tell you one thing. Linus Ullmark is a UFA. He got hurt. With this team, he had a .915 save percentage. Yeah. He's a good young goal. He's not a number one, but he's a 1A, 1B type. If there are teams out there looking for a goaltender for a tandem, you could do a lot worse than Linus Ullmark. I don't know if he's going to come back to Buffalo. I don't know whether they'll still spend the money because he's probably going to get like $4 million in free agency. But he's a good goalie. You just didn't have a second goalie to back him up. And Carter Hutton is just not a good goalie. I
wouldn't re-sign him anyway, though. I think they need a cleansing breath. With their goaltending and start over again. And nothing sort of signals a change in culture and attitude than a complete.
But they haven't done well with goaltending in years, Kev, since Ryan Miller.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, there are guys out there I think that they could grab. And I think like Darcy Kemper is a guy I would definitely think they should look at.
You keep telling me that, but I keep calling the Coyotes and they keep saying we're not trading him.
We're not trading him.
I mean, and I want to say to him, but Eklund has been trying to trade him all year.
I've been trying to trade him. Look, it's funny. The rest of the league seems to think he's available. But obviously it doesn't matter if
I don't think that's true because at least not the people I talk to tell me that he's not available. But maybe they're maybe he's only available to some teams. I don't know.
Well, let me ask you. And again, I don't know whether there is a limit on how many goaltenders Seattle can take in expansion, but I do realize that there are going to be goaltenders exposed for the expansion draft, and Ron Francis can do a little business if there is no limit on how many goalies he can take by taking somebody off of somebody's roster and then flipping them to a team that needs a goalie. And I think that's going to be done, Kev, a lot if he doesn't have a limit.
Well, or those guys will be traded beforehand, that you get back a goalie that you can expose. You know,
and if they're going to be traded, they're going to be traded to Buffalo. I mean, or Carolina. I mean, places like really desperately need goalies.
Here's an interesting one. Let's bring up Carolina for a minute because they're riding Ned Jelkovic, who I love. But again, it's his first time in the league. He's doing great. He's got a .926 save percentage. But Kev, if they keep riding him, what's going to happen when they hit the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be essentially where they were last year. Whereas, that's the big question mark. We've seen this so many times where the question mark is goaltending. They don't get the job done, but they think, well, this will be the year he does it. But when you start, you're right back where you were before. Well, can he do it? So that team's so good too to risk it on not getting the quality goaltending.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about them because one of the things I wanted to discuss there are some teams that we don't like. Kevin wrote his article a few weeks ago about teams, don't count these teams out. I got a couple more of those teams I'd like to add into that list right now. Because
can I ask Kev one question before you do that?
Yeah, sure.
Kev, do you hear anything about Rod Brind'Amour? Do we have any reason to believe he'll come back next year?
Well, I know the owner really, really likes him, and he has kind of said that, he did say that, that he won't let him get away, and he generally gets what he wants. So, so I would say they'll get him signed. But saying that, I just saw for the first time this week in MLive.com. Now it was mostly speculation, but Ansar Khan is pretty wired in on the Red Wings, and he has listed Rod Brind'Amour as someone that he thinks the Red Wings will be interested in if Blashill is dismissed. So.
The name most commonly mentioned in Buffalo is Bruce Boudreau, but Russ, the coach for Providence, supposedly
he's good. He's good.
Nate Lehman.
Nate Lehman.
Yeah, Nate Lehman.
He's a good coach. If you're going to bring in a college coach, he's the one.
And Adams, the rumor is Adams would like to go the college route.
Plus, you got to remember Bryson's one of his guys.
Okay.
He played at Providence, so.
Okay.
I've also to stick with Brind'Amour for a second. I was a really good source of mine who's working out in Seattle told me ages ago that they were going to go hard for him. That was going to be that Seattle thought that was that Francis Brind'Amour combination out there makes some sense.
It is surprising that they haven't jumped at a coach yet.
Well, if they haven't jumped at a coach yet, doesn't that make you think that the coach they want is probably still coaching?
Exactly. Yes.
I mean, and if that's the case, then I'm thinking
Yeah, if they were interested in Gallant or Babcock or Booth or anybody,
they could have them signed already.
They'd have them signed already. Yeah,
right.
I can't believe though that Brind'Amour would want to go to Seattle over Carolina.
I agree.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
could he be leveraging the possibility of going to Seattle or going to Detroit to get more money out of Dundon?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess all that is possible. But I know, there's great respect for his contributions to where Carolina is.
I think it's coming from the Brind'Amour side, Kev. What I've been getting from Brind'Amour is I've done all I can do here with what I have here. I don't think he's getting exactly what he feels he needs for that team to win it all. And I've watched him in some press conferences. He's completely professional, but I do know him from just covering him a lot. And I just feel like something's not right there with him.
I
don't know. I've not seen that, but I don't know his side of it. And if you know his side of it, that's I guess possible.
I don't know his from him.
From the other side, I would suggest that they don't think they're not giving him what he wants because they have such great respect. There's a lot of discussion with him about when they make moves and things. So
I think he's and obviously he's a big time. He's a legend in that. He's a legend in that town. I mean,
but if you asked him, would you like a better goaltender? He probably would say yes.
Of course, I think so. But at the same time, I also think that he has, knowing him pretty well as well from his time here in Philly and having met him and talked to him on several different occasions. I don't
think he's checked out. No,
his biggest thing is always a challenge. Like he is all about
That's
he's all
true.
about challenges. He's all about he challenges himself to keep in incredible shape. He's just like if you can throw a challenge in front of this guy, and if Francis says, listen, in Seattle we got an expansion team. It's a great city. There's gonna be so much excitement around this. Great building, great owners. Hockey town already. Come up here for this challenge. That's a tough one for Brindamore to turn down in my mind. The way he thinks. I might be wrong, but
Yeah, no.
Well,
and you can't, what we're not discussing, which is I would assume is important, is the money. Like, is Seattle willing to give him kind of a Quenneville contract? Because as much as Dundon likes him, I don't know. Would he want? Would he pay him like Mike Babcock? Or
No, I don't think so.
$5 million.
So I don't know. Maybe it's a money thing.
And what happens if he has a good run here? I mean, the question is if he has a really good run in these playoffs, which is possible. Very possible, honestly, because think about that division is, we all kind of thought that was going to be the weakest division, and it turned out to have some pretty strong teams in it.
I don't see how they get by Tampa.
No, I mean, getting by Tampa is going to be obviously very hard. Finishing first in that division is huge.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point, though. We're talking about they should go out and get a goaltender, and it's hard to argue that that they have a goaltender, but there's no one they can get that makes them better in net than Tampa Bay.
Right.
No, but not true. But they are one of the best. I mean, they're one of my top 5 or 6 teams in the league right now. Carolina is. I mean, they are that good. And
they're good.
I am not usually high on Carolina, as you guys know. I've been really slow to come around to them because I can never get my fingers around what they really are.
Now,
but my gosh, plus 24 goal differential at this point in the season. That's pretty impressive.
I saw articles this week because Nikita Kucherov has started skating in Tampa, and basically it's like Tampa is circumventing the cap. If you didn't know that the plan was to bring Kucherov back for Game 1 of the playoffs, you're a dunce. Of course, that was the plan.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of talked about openly, not by them, but by everybody else.
Right.
That wink, wink, wink. We're going to see him into the playoffs. Although, now there's the suggestion that he might come back early, which will mean they're going to have to try to figure out something to do with the cap. If they do that, here we go. I mean, already we've seen Brisebois say publicly, remind everybody, we're literally up against the cap, so don't think we can do anything. So maybe they'll do something to create a little room to bring him back earlier. So
and you can't stop him from coming back. He's practicing. If he's already skating, okay, it's March. It's March. The playoffs are in May. If he's already skating,
but guys, you'll be fine on that. There can be, it's kind of like the when Zetterberg was. Everybody knew that the minute he was going to decide he had enough, he was going to get medical clearance because the doctors had said, well, his back is so bad he shouldn't be playing. Well, when you have an injury like that, if Kucherov can come back, that's probably on him rushing it. But most doctors were going to look at that injury and say, well, he really should stay out till whatever. So, what I'm saying, I think they can sort of get around that.
Could a team challenge this? Could a team could Florida or Carolina go to the NHL and say, listen, we think he's skating. It's like we want him to be seen by a neutral doctor who sits there and tells you what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but I don't think so.
No, not if they wait. They're waiting until the. I mean, Patrick Kane did it in Chicago.
I know it's happened before, but you have to wonder how other teams.
It's like in baseball and scoring, you can't assume the out. You can't assume the out. Well, I think the same would be true in an injury. You can't assume that the guy should come back when, common sense says if it was a normal human being, they would be out till the start of the playoffs. So.
Yeah, you have to put Kucherov in now. We know he's healthy, so you have to put him in. No.
If the playoffs started 3 weeks from now and not they start 5 weeks from now?
Yeah.
If they started 3 weeks from now, would he be ready to play?
No.
Would he be ready because he just decides that he wants to do it against common medical advice? I think that's possible.
Well, common medical advice in hockey players. I mean, come on, the recovery.
But that's the real world. You know what I mean?
But we're using the real world really conveniently here, aren't we?
I mean, Ack.
Well, yeah, but
I mean,
Zach Hyman played in the Boston series a couple years ago with a torn ACL.
right. That's what I mean. It's
You know-
like, so the reality here is that there needs to be a line at which to say, okay, this guy can no longer be on LTIR.
No.
but that's just real life.
Bob Bond played with a broken leg. Common sense goes out the window when it comes to the playoffs.
Oh, I know, but I'm not worried about the playoffs. I think
But you have to apply reasonable standards, and players when they come back don't apply reasonable standards.
right. So we're going to apply it now. Just because it behooves us to apply it now, we're going to suddenly apply them. Like he's recovering from an injury that if I had that same injury, basically.
Yeah,
he could be on LTIR for the next 5 years because that's how long it would take me to get back.
I'd be in bed for 6 years. So yeah,
right, exactly. So I don't know. It's just like,
but I'm not an athlete.
Oh my god.
Like Nikita Kucherov. Now, what were you gonna?
All right,
so
I'm going to mention this real quick. Luke DeCock wrote in an article last month that Brendan Moore is one of the lowest paid coaches in the league at $600,000 a year. So
money.
Kevin said, "Could it be money? It could be money."
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think, and I listen, as much as he likes it there, if he feels like this, if he feels like he is in like a version of Groundhog Day, where he's gonna put together great teams for what he has, but that's all he's gonna get, and he has, and Brendan Moore, no question, has like had whatever he's given, he's made them work, he's made those teams work, right, and he's done it in all different sorts of ways, and he's really. He's a much better coach than I ever thought he would be, as knowing him as a little bit as a player. Like, I know he was a great leader, but I never saw him as intelligent as he is, as his ability to take. I mean, all the stuff with his celebrations, all that last year. That's all Brendan Moore. That's all Brendan Moore approved stuff. It's like to think about. It's like that. A lot
apparently, DeCock said that he's under tremendous pressure from the Coaches Association to get a commensurate salary for what he's done. And so this would be a massive raise for Tom Dundon. When Tom Dundon says he deserves a raise, that's different than what he might actually be worth in Tom Dundon's mind,
Now, knowing somebody who negotiated with Dundon before, it will all come down to if Dundon thinks that he is that they can't find another coach that's just as good as Brendan Moore for less. Like that's what it comes out. Like that's how he works, right? So he's going to sit there. And so the question is, has he sold Dundon on the fact that he is really the reason this team is as good as they are, or not? I don't know that. Do you have any clue on that, Kevin? Do you think that he is any?
I've talked to.
Yeah.
We
lost you for a sec there, Kev.
I don't know whether Dundon would offer him maybe the kind of money that maybe Seattle will. Maybe Seattle's willing to give him a Joel Quenneville type contract. I don't have any idea, but if they are, I don't see Dundon paying him $3 million or.
Because he's basically getting paid like a fourth liner.
Yeah, not hard. No. It's not hard it's not hard for Francis to go to Lewicki and sell him on Brendan Moore.
He's not even paying him league minimum player salary.
No.
That's not a hard thing to do, right? So that's a big deal. So Carolina is one of the teams I want to talk about. Another team I want to talk about that is still like kind of surprising me, and we think they're not in it now, right? We sit there and we say, okay, they're not in it for sure, but I still feel like they're in it, and I know and that is the New York Rangers, and I know that this is kind of crazy, but I still have this, and I know we watched the other night put on 9 against the Flyers. That's fine. There were things in that game, though, and games I've watched before that with the Rangers that show me that they are starting to find another little level within their game, quietly
with a different coach,
right? With a different, if their goaltenders were healthy at all right now, they may have like four more points than they have right now. And if that was the case, they would be like 1 point behind.
That's fair, yeah.
I mean, they would be with healthy goalies, they'd be 1 point behind the Flyers, and we all think the Flyers are still in the playoffs, right?
Well, so, Rangers defense is as bad as the Flyers. That's the only thing.
Yeah, but you have to look at the numbers right now, Ack. And the Flyers and the Rangers have both played 28 games. So is Boston, who's in 4th place. Boston has 36. Philly has 33. The Rangers have 28. Are the Rangers?
I know, but let me argue something, Mike and Russ. You sit there and you say the Rangers defense is as bad as the Flyers. That's not at all true. I mean, the
It is true.
Rangers have given up 23 less goals than the Flyers.
Because their goaltending's way better.
Yeah, I'll yield to Russ in terms of I mean they got Trouba back. I like
Trouba's had an average season. That's it, average.
Right.
Adam Fox has been great, and Miller's been great, right? But they've not all been great all at the same time. Everything else after that is up for grabs with the Rangers defense, and their goaltending has really saved them.
Yeah, I get that, but there, there is something. I mean, I don't know. I just have a feeling that that's a team that, I mean, they just.
I don't think Jeff Gorton's going to be a buyer, Kev.
But if he picked up a veteran defenseman, could they close the gap? Yes, if he wants to do that.
Well, the biggest issue they have is just the format that we have this year, because if you look at the 10-game segment, that there's usually 2 or 3 teams now that are 7-3 or 7-2-1,
right?
And that it's hard to make up ground. So if you go 8-1, you make up 2 points, and they're 8 points back. So it's still going to be hard because everybody's playing each other, and 3 teams are winning every night. So
that is the issue. Is that
let's put it this way: let's have them playing as well as they were at the end of last season, which is possible. One of the issues they've had this year is they had Zibanejad, who, I mean, he can say that it wasn't COVID, but it sure seemed like that it took him forever to recover from COVID.
Yeah.
Panarin has been the same player and then was out for an extended period. Their goaltending wasn't as good.
Right.
D'Angelo, who was a huge part of that team, is no longer on the team. Like that, so many things have gone wrong for them. And if they got it all together, could they push? And this, Tom Laidlaw is loyal to the Rangers, but he's been saying for 2 weeks that they're still in it. He thinks they're kind of coming on.
I mean, they're one of the few teams that's not in a playoff spot right now that has a plus differential. So is it possible? Sure. But, I mean, everything would have to go right. And there would
they could score goals like that. Right. There's no question about that.
A lot of things would have to go wrong with Philadelphia, Boston, and maybe one other team. So, I mean, the odds are against it. But, I mean, I liked the Rangers, and I think I predicted the Rangers to make the playoffs. So if they make a run, it's not out of the question.
Next team I wanted to go to is in the Central, and we talked about Columbus, and they're coming on, they're doing well. Chicago's fallen off a little bit, but and Nashville is surprisingly still somehow close, but which seems like impossible because Nashville's played so poorly. But Dallas is the really interesting team in that division, right? Because Dallas
they have so many games to make up.
Right, they've only played 26 games, right? So and they're at a 481, basically 500. Is where you need to be at least 500 to be like legitimate for a playoff spot, at least legitimate contender. So they are, granted they are now what I'm looking at. They're 8 points behind a playoff spot with 5 games at hand, right? So what happened?
I know I said they're on a losing streak, which isn't helping them. No. I brought them up yesterday, and you did seem semi-positive, Kev. What I had mentioned, and I'll get your opinion. I said they should be a team that goes after Taylor Hall, especially if Tyler Seguin's going to be maybe out for the year with the hip problem.
Yeah, no, they definitely could use another scorer. I watched them last night, and they had a lot of shots on goal against Detroit, but they couldn't seem to finish. And Bernier was pretty good, but then Greiss came in, and it just felt like, okay, well, they're going to come from behind and win this, but they couldn't get the puck past a struggling Greiss either. So the loss of Seguin has really been has hurt them even more than I think they thought it would.
Yeah. And that's with Pavelski having a year that nobody saw. I mean, he's continued to play as good as he did in the playoffs, and that's surprising.
Yeah. It's a couple of things with that team. Ben really has not been the player that we, think he should be for a long time. Like he had, if you even think about last year's playoffs, it was a pretty small frame in which he was the Ben of old.
Yeah,
he wasn't like every game in the playoffs. He wasn't the Ben of old. So,
it was mostly the Colorado, because I tracked the Stars a lot because I had them in my fantasy hockey pool. It was mostly the Colorado series, the series against Vegas, in the final against Tampa, he was very, and I don't know if he was struggling with injury, but he played like he was. And
there's a lot of guys available too to help. Like the number of sellers. Usually, you're limited. Everyone's feeding off like 2 teams and the one team with a one player. But the Red Wings have several players. There's some guys on the Senators. There's a lot of players available. Buffalo.
Well, and we can lead into the rumor chart on this act. I heard Darren Drago this morning, Kev, talk about, and this is always the case 3 weeks out from the deadline. The sellers are asking price is ridiculous according to the buyers. But I thought it would be a little bit different this year because there are, I think, so few buyers because of financial situations and so many sellers for the same reason. But it just seems right now that the selling GMs are asking for an exorbitant price.
Well, that's what you're hearing. But, it's funny. Like I've been hearing, for example, that Ekholm Poyle wants a player that can help them now, a prospect and a first-round pick, where, my sense is that it was going to be a really good prospect or young player and a first-round pick. Ultimately, I think that's what it'll be. I would be, unless, there could be another draft pick thrown in, but,
sure.
You always kind of see that. But I still think that's what it'll be ultimately. It'll just come down to where the first round pick is located and who the young player is you're willing to get back. That's what it comes down to. That's the one. That's the guy that I'm hearing is getting the most traction because all the contenders are in on him. And
there's a lot of interest. And and usually what we see in the trade deadline is we see these prices start out really high, and we see the only ones that end up getting the high are like the top 2 defensemen, the top 1 forward, and those guys actually get what they want. But after that, the prices come way down. That tends, so Ekholm's going to get, I think Raquel is going to get a pretty good price out there. It seems like, I've heard his name mentioned a ton.
He'll get a price. Yeah, he'll get a good price.
Hall, I'm not quite so sure about. There's a lot of really differing opinions on Taylor Hall right now. As far as, and it's funny, he's starting to talk to Buffalo again. And I think part of that might be the fact that he's realizing that the most money for him might be in Buffalo. Because really, when it comes down to it, as much as I think he wants to play elsewhere, and as much as I hear he wants to play for Calgary, Buffalo is a desperate team in a desperate situation right now.
It would be surprising that, they know the player, they know the character of the player, they know how good he is in spite of the fact that he's only scored 2 goals this year. I just can't see them paying premium money for a guy who's paid for a guy who's only scored 2 goals. And if that's the case, if he's interested in going back to Buffalo, why wouldn't you, again, it's the Keith Tkachuk thing. Why wouldn't you trade him and then try to sign him in the summer?
So I just got this text that Johansson's not on the ice for Buffalo.
Yeah.
You saw that too.
They signed a goalie, Michael Hauser, who played in.
Michael Hauser, yeah.
And they put him on waivers to clear him. So there might be an injury with Johansson. That would mean Carter Hutton and Michael Hauser.
Hauser might have been in Florida's system, I think.
Russ, they don't want to bring up Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
No, that's smart. That's the one thing they're doing right. But I don't think they could sell to their fan base signing Taylor Hall when they're ripping him for Jeff Skinner, who did at least once score 40 goals for him. Taylor Hall has literally scored 2 goals. I don't think you could give him any kind of big salary and sell that to the fan base. I don't think the fans would be happy with that at all.
No, I kind of agree with you. But let's the other team I wanted to touch on really quickly, and then I do want to do a couple of rumor chart things with everybody, especially with Kevin here, is the team that people have to watch out for right now is the LA Kings. And the Kings are just sitting there, and people are watching them like, the Kings seem to be in everyone's mind, the Kings are out of it. They're just not out of it. They really aren't. They're
not out of it yet.
They keep playing really well. They're .536 winning percentage right now. They're closing in on St. Louis.
Yeah, their goaltending's been great. That's one thing that's
goaltending's been amazing. They are
in line with Velarde has been really good with Jeff Carter. That's something that's really been good too.
They are buyers. Whenever I talk to people, they're in the trade.
Well, they have things they could sell, so they might be buying. Again, here's Rob Blake's mentality is different than what they've had the last few years. Would I be a buyer? No. I would let this team ride itself out. And if I got lucky and got in the playoffs, that's great. But there's no way I'm giving up future assets because I think I can do something in the playoffs year where I'm going to get toasted in the first round. I'm not doing it.
One thing, Russ, if I would be a buyer, a limited buyer, if I'm not trading guys like Bjorn Foot or Turcotte or Velarde. If I'm trading draft picks, since I have such a bevy of young players,
I still wouldn't trade the draft picks either, Mike.
Not a time. I'm not saying trade a first. I'm saying, if you want to go in the rental market and you say a second round pick to get a defenseman that helps you because their defense. I think if they're going to add, it's going to be on defense because
I agree.
Defense is weak. They have enough offense, and they have Peterson and Quick. I think Quick is still on the injured list, so they're going.
He is. Peterson's been carrying the load for
right. So if they can get a defenseman for a second round pick, a rental act, then I think that would be sort of the limited buy that they would do. But I don't think that Blake is going to be going down the road of trading a top prospect to get a rental or even a guy with another year left, because that's not where they are right now. Right now, I think they want to get in the playoffs with the kids that they have, to give them a little experience and have guys like Kopitar and Doughty sort of show them the way, because in a year or two, those guys are going to be in their mid-30s and the kids are going to be the one carrying the load.
The interesting thing is, Zach, remember how I told you I do believe that the Kings and Ducks directly compete in that market, like for everything? Well, yesterday was a big day for the Ducks because Jamie Drysdale got called up. He gets his first NHL point. Zegras finally gets his first NHL goal. Yeah. It's a sharing of the headlines, even though the Ducks are not anywhere close to being a playoff team. Right. They are at least showing their fans, hey, these guys are our future. We're going to show you that now. I think that's what the Kings are doing, and I think they should just keep doing that.
But Russ, I'll tell you right now that we may see another coach on the chopping block by the end of this year, because I don't think that Bob Murray signed up to be last in that West Division. They have a minus 35 goal differential. They have no offense right now, literally, and Gibson's been letting up a lot of goals. So I don't know if Dallas Eakins survives after this year.
He may not survive. Eck, before you read that first name, you have to have a mea culpa here. If you don't even read it.
Why? Give me why.
Because of the sell job that you did on Patrick Laine, on being one of the elite players in the league, and then also with this trade, what he was going to do.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, let's ask you about this, because Laine, since he got there, he's been used. He's also been sort of penalized by being quasi benched by John Tortorella. As he normally has throughout his career, he's very streaky. He's had a bad streak. He's had a hot streak. The whole question with Laine when the trade was made, Kev, was the ability of Jarmo Kekalainen to get him signed to a long-term deal. And if Laine is on the block either now or before next season, that tells me Jarmo can't get him signed.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And it hasn't. I kind of thought that might work out just because, Kekalainen, just has an ability to connect with players, particularly a Finnish player. I thought he would be able to do that, but we haven't seen that yet. There hasn't been the chemistry that I thought there was going to be. So I don't know. I think anything could happen there.
I mean, I still think it could work out, and I still have it at 70% for Laine here on my chart. So I'm still thinking 70% to Columbus. So that's pretty strong to Columbus still. I'm still feeling that way. But if there's another team, I've heard, and it's in my other team that I was mentioning before, is another team you have to really look out for quietly when you were off, Kev, is the LA Kings. And they are.
That's
where he wanted to go. So So that would make some sense.
But I don't think the Kings would want to sign. Would the Kings really spend big money on him long term? I don't know, Kev.
It makes sense to me that they would. But Kevin,
what has he proven? Tell me what Patrick Laine's proven this year that would let you say, "Hey, I trust that he's going to get back to like 3 years ago form," as an example.
Well, I mean, he's done it before, and he's a young man, so there's no reason why he couldn't do it.
No, but I'm talking about big money. Like, if you're going to give him a 3-year deal, fine.
Yeah, I mean, I just depends on the length of the deal. I wouldn't give him, 7 years at $9 million. So
But you don't have to do that if that's where he wants to play. See that the difference is if he wants to play in LA, you can when you own his rights. The Jackets are in a good spot here where they own his rights. They don't have to make this trade.
But
Liney's not going anywhere. But the reality is the Kings have a ton of prospects,
right?
And Columbus is sitting there, and if Liney wants to go there, and the Kings have a ton of prospects. And Liney is like, don't think the Kings don't want to make a high profile.
Some of those prospects are better than Patrick Liney.
Right, and right.
No, but Liney has some he has still cachet. He's a
I don't know about that.
No, he's a big name. He's a big name still.
But based on what we just said about maybe we have to give him a shorter contract, we're talking about him being the Finnish Alexander Semin. That basically you can't give this guy a long-term contract because you can't trust him in terms of motivation. If that's the case, then
not Semin. That's like crazy.
What?
He's got 12 points. 12 points. He gets top power play. He gets top everything there. He's a minus again, a big-time minus in a Tortorella system. That's not good.
And this is the thing that you have to worry about with the LA Kings. Okay. They've got Kopitar and they've got Doughty on long-term deals, and that's $21 million of the cap. Dustin Brown's had a great year. He's got one more year. Jeff Carter, we know Jeff Carter. He's got another year. Those two guys total $10 million, a little over $10 million. That's $31 million of your $81.5 million cap on 4 players, and then that's not including Quick. So, I mean, you still got a healthy chunk of that roster, almost half of their cap on the core group of the team that won a Stanley Cup, 7 years ago? I can't
taking the same amount of shots.
Like what Kevin said is right. You don't have to go super high on him if he wants to play there.
No, but to try and figure out where he is taking the same amount of shots as he last did in Winnipeg, and fewer goals are going in. So how deep am I going to go, even on a 3-year deal, salary-wise for him? I'm not giving him $10 million. No.
I wouldn't give him $10 million either. Yeah. I guess I see the Kings as a possibility, but sure. I also think there's a better than even chance he'll stay right there in Columbus too. So
because we all know. I mean, it's pretty much accepted unless there's some dramatic change that Torts is probably not going to be back after this year. And if they go with a coach that Laine wants to play for, or has no problem playing for, then he could sign long. But he's an RFA, and they're going to have to sort of please him to get him to sign long term there.
He gets 18 minutes of ice time, which is actually 18-12, which is more than he got in Winnipeg, like the last time he was there, because he was having problems with Maurice, and he's still not scoring 7 goals.
Well, here's the other thing too. I mean, as hard as this is to believe, but they got bigger problems than Laine.
I know.
They got Seth Jones that
I know.
Have to deal with.
You're right about that.
Now you don't have a number 1 center still. Roslovic has done a good job there, but he's not a number 1. Tortorella is going to have to be replaced if that's the direction you're going. So they've got issues, and Werenski's coming up as well.
Yep.
Yeah, they've got issues. So
for sure, they've got plenty. That's all the time we have for today, guys. But thank you so much for everyone for joining. Thank you, Kevin. As always, have a wonderful weekend, everybody out there.
Kevin's 3 guitarists. They asked them to check.
Oh yes, we had this. We were talking about this before. People want to know. We did our favorite
top 3
rock
guitarists. Kev, who are your top 3
that you've seen in person?
That you've seen in concert.
Oh man. I'm just. You're gonna have to get back to me next week.
Okay, we'll do that next week.
I want to throw one thing at Kevin, because one of my 3, Kevin, was my guitarist. You saw my guitarist live.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah.
You're the only one who has. And I was just telling you guys, check him out. He's Brett Culley's out there. He's really that good.
Yeah. Let me think about that. I'll have an answer next time. So.
All right, cool. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Remember, without